We'll be live very shortly.
I like that hat, Holden.
I appreciate that.
I'm
It's
saying,
I just it's got the vibe to it. I like that. I
yeah,
feel like everybody in Montreal likes cats in some way, even if they don't. And it's just Montreal.
yeah.
It's just the most proper thing we could do here.
We all like
Uh
that kitty over here. Woo.
yeah. I like you already.
I love you,
Um,
man. I love your show too. Let's go.
yo, I'm
Action.
excited. Let's do this. So, yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bridge the Gap. This is the one at end of the week where they set it up, and it's an extra special edition because we are joined by a founder of End of the Week, which is super exciting. Mr. Is it Prolific One or Propane? I'm not 1,000% sure.
We're using them interchangeably.
Fair enough.
It's we'll talk about it. You know what I mean?
All right, all right. So, well, it says Prolific One, so I'll go with that one today in this right moment. My name
Let's
is
go.
Holden Stefan Roy. Joining me today is Littyyy Bro Flacco. Yes, I got through it this time.
Liddy, bros.
La, 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 la.
And so we decided that as we start this show, we're gonna start it with the little story of how it all began, as told by Mr. Littyyy Bro Flacco. So if you
Facts,
don't mind
facts,
taking that
facts,
away,
facts. Right.
Yeah.
So like this journey all started right when I was doing the press run, right, and we got blessed enough to have the engineer from Canada, right, Merker Miyagi, the homie Merker Studios, to have him engineer our project, right, and because he engineered the project, he promoted one of the songs because he liked the song as well, but he doesn't ever really promote the people that he works with, you know. So Holden saw that and he was like, "Hold on, hold your horses here. What's going on? This guy's promoting this guy." So he went and he checked it out. Then he does the review on us. He does the interview, and as he does the interview, I'm realizing like, yo, this guy's got a talent at what he does. You know what I mean? Like he's good at his like process in his interview, and like I was like, yo, I've done nothing but interviews where I talk about hip hop, battle rap, and nothing else. Like as if though I'm not a human being that doesn't have like a whole ass life story. You know what I mean? And like to me, I was just like, yo, it felt so gratifying to have the interview with Holden. I was just like, what do you do when you a real motherfucker from New York City, right? What you do? You put all your peoples onto the shit, right? And so that's what I did. And I was just like, yo, we're gonna do this show together. I'm gonna bring guests to the table and we're gonna do this together. And Holden has been fantastic, I think. And I think that everybody's like enjoying the journey because the man is really genuinely talented at what he does.
my solar is like sincerely mad curious. Like, yo, I'm from Montreal, right? So like just talking to people who are like a part of New York hip hop history, it's just mad like it's a gift. Like we're not able to Google this kind of stuff, right? So for me, the whole journey kind of comes from album reviews a bit. So I was doing album reviews and people are like, yo, Google that shit before you talk about it. And then you try to Google it and there's no information about anything on Google. So a lot of the stories behind things is just kind of lost and or not lost, but it's a lot more orally told, but it's not really recorded and put anywhere. There's a lot of I mean kind of like people kind of sharing this common understanding that's localized to where they're from. But I'm from Montreal. Sometimes we have Golden Jenny from Norway in here, and there's a whole world of people curious to just learn a lot more. So it's like a big blessing to have somebody like you, especially with the knowledge and experiences you've had come through. So that's kind of like it's why it's bridged the gap. So we can go through your story and extract knowledge nuggets and like all of us get kind of bettered from it. Like every time I do this with somebody, I feel like I learn enough to like evolve myself a little bit as a person, which I just find is a truly big blessing for me. But with that, we do start with this kind of token question that we've been starting with to get the ball rolling a little bit. It's a bit of a journey as I tell it. So when it lands, you can answer it however you want. But it starts with my girlfriend as she's washing the dishes and she's bumping that Black Eyed Peas song. That I got a feeling. Ooh, like dancing around and she's vibing and I'm like, yo, hold on a second. This song, I remember it vividly like 10 years ago. We were in the clubs and we like bouncing around and jumping drunk as fuck, partying to this song. And now, all this time later, it's that song that you would put on to go exercise and do chores too and clean up and kind of vibe around like that. Which got me thinking about songs and vibes and stuff, and how over time music really just changes its purpose and its role in our lives, and it kind of gets attached to a journey, which also got me thinking that every single club song that you hear today is going to be some shit that kids grow up listening to as their parents clean up their apartments, including the Cardi B's and all of it. You know, a bunch of kids go into that up, and it's up. It's going to be the future of growing up kids. I digress. If we think about our own musical journeys and stuff, right? Usually we start talking about it when we can remember it and we start carrying in our adolescence or whenever it kicks in for us. But the fact is, if you think about the musics and the vibes and the times, it really goes all the way back for us, way before we even necessarily start caring. When we're like really young, like 4 or 5 years old, there's a whole bunch of vibes and sounds and different things that are taking place in the environment. Like I can remember my dad is bumping these Led Zeppelin tapes through those gray boxes hooked up to the speakers, and we had the tape deck in the car and we were playing some Christa Berg there. My mom's had this discos and completely other vibes and sounds. So depending on who was in control, different things exposed me. All this time later, it totally impacts who I am as a person. So I wondered if you could bring us back to like being like 5 years old and what a prolific one would have been hearing in the environments and the experiences of all of that. And also if you could let us know a little bit where you're from.
Yeah, that's real. The music has resonance, right? And I do believe that even hits you from womb, right? When you're in utero, you actually absorbing these sonics and these vibrations. And so that said, the boys from the Lower East Side, New York City, you know what I mean? Born in Bellevue, really from there. Then I went south about 20 blocks to Baruch Public Housing Projects, 90 Columbia Street, and lived with grandma and grandpa, my mom's 2-bedroom apartment. You know, it's kind of cliche when I start to talk about it and say it out loud. You feel me? In terms of being like the urban narrative of a rapper coming up, being born in public housing during late 70s into the 80s type. It's almost like too like textbook, right? But it's definitely real. It's definitely true. My father was a promoter, a pretty big and substantial promoter in the New York City nightclub scene. Mom Dukes was disco queen. You know what I'm saying? You talk about Southside clubs. You talk about Studio 54. You talk about the hustle. There's legendary photos of Mom Dukes in fly gowns, 8 to 9 months pregnant, hitting the club and going out dancing. You know, there's legendary tales, you know, through my aunts and kind of my family of my mother being like, yeah, no, I'm 7, I'm 8 months, I'm 9 months, but I need to go out dancing, right? And so to your point, I would say that the soul, the disco, the funk era, and the Latin mambo, dance, salsa, Fania Gran Combo era, this fusion of Latin music and soul music is born into me, is embedded in me from even before I could speak, right? And even on one of my new records, it's like I'm saying, even the amniotic fluid that I was bubbling in was those sonic vibrations coming through. You know what I mean? That movement my mom's is doing, dancing out on the floor and all that. You know, I'm channeling that even now as a grown man. But it's in my DNA, but it's also in my nature. You know what I mean? It's something that's embedded in me. So like my earliest memories of music are, you know, it's 8 in the morning, Saturday, and the music is blasting because we don't do halfway. You know, when you come up in a Puerto Rican household and a Latin household, the music is always loud, it's always thumping, and it's definitely high pace, high energy, big horns, crazy drums. You know, it's conga, it's mambo, it's shoulder shaking, it's hips moving, gyrating, it's soul music. You know what I mean? And so like when I think about coming up, I think about, you know, parties in the house till, you know, the sun comes out, people dancing all night long, drinking, being loud, opening the door in the projects, police knocking on the door, but every neighbor's in the house partying too, you know what I mean? So it's definitely a community music vibe. It's a soul vibe. And then on the, you know, as I said, my father was a promoter and he worked in urban music and did a lot of early promotion back in the day. was hustling, the Red Parrot, clubs like this, doing boat parties and things like this. So there's also this whole like soul, heavy like dance music vibration that also came across in my life. And music has always been in the fabric of my household. Even right now, I'm sure it was Saturday and we pull up on 6th Street in Alphabet City and we cruise by the building. First of all, the bandera is flagging out front on the window. The windows is definitely open, and my mom has definitely got some form of new salsa playing. Some kind of like either old school Oscar de Leon, some Hector Lavoe playing, and that was the whole vibe that I was brought up. Like I came into a party. In fact, I was grown into dance and party and good vibrations and high spirits and joy and love. You know what I mean? So for me, that's what the music represents. That's the music that I came into. It's heavy Latin music, but there's also like, soul love baby making music too. And my grandparents listening to La Lupe and like all these old like slow bolero records, and that's what usually came on after 3 a.m. when everybody was tanked and trying to get biz. So it's this interesting balance of Latin music, heavy, culture vibe, and also like old school soul, black, good vibe, funk, vibration. And that's what I came up on.
Hold on. All right. So check it. I need you there was a few things that I saw.
Like,
yeah, because it was a lot. He unloaded it
was one of the best answers to that question
best ever. Gotten. Super best ever, because it was so descriptive.
Wow, it's very just got to get that compliment.
I, as a fellow New Yorker, can follow 100% of every single word and sentiment that he was sharing with us, right? But I'm afraid that a few of the things that you said, right, might not be understood by people who don't know New York City culture or Latin culture, right? So can you explain to people all those when you listed off and rattled off all those forms of music, right? Even like when you say Fania, like I know Fania, right? But like I think that it's important for you to like explain to people what this music really is.
And I'm like, I don't know what a La Lupe is. La Lupe. I'm rolling with it because this story is real good. No context, but I can Google it after. It was in my head.
We'll start from the islands, right? The Caribbean, right? You have this mass exodus of Puerto Ricans leaving the island in the 1940s and 50s. You have Cubans coming up into South Florida and then up to New York City, and they're moving into these ghettos, right? They're moving into impoverished neighborhoods that they can afford to live in. These are working class people, but these are also career musicians coming from their own islands, coming from living a farm life or a poor life where they would play campesino music. Campesino music is like folktale music, right? Where they would play the cuatro. The cuatro is a specific type of guitar. It's like a small form factor guitar, and it's a very unique sound.
It's almost similar. A person who wouldn't know would see it and maybe think like, oh, it's a little bit of bigger ukulele, and it's like, no, it's not a bigger ukulele. But yes, technically speaking, you are right. It would be a little bit bigger than a ukulele, but it's not a ukulele. So
you have them coming. You have them coming up from these islands. A lot of them are coming into the military, right? They're going out into PR and they're drafting these men to come into the military to fight for the United States. During the World War, during the various conflicts that they're having, because as you may or may not know, Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States, and there's a sordid history that we could get into in terms of like El Borinquen and like the independence of our island and like the long battle for us to kind of break the colonial chain. But I won't delve too crazy in there. I will talk about this musical journey and how these people come from farms singing songs about their cow or the woman that they lost, or like what it's like to like get up and farm the land. And these are kind of our folk tales and our folk music, right? And they come to America and there's this jazz movement happening, right, with Black jazz musicians. A very similar thing is happening with the Cuban community coming into New York City at that time as well. And there's this kind of big band sound at the time, right? This is, the 50s era where everything was big bag, Cab Calloway, and there's a gentleman by the name of Machito. Machito is a Black African Cuban Spanish speaking man who comes into New York City, and he puts together the first big band Latin orchestra, right? So they're taking this big band sound and they're taking this peasant, almost farm music, and they're blending the jazz and all of this what we would call, it's like a sancocho, it's like a pot, a melting pot where they're throwing in these different sounds.
Gumbo, in
correct.
Essence,
Yeah.
Like any soup that has a lot of ingredients in it, which is what all impoverished people usually would always make their
right. You throw your scraps together.
Meals that you could feed many with.
Fact. So Machito becomes kind of the gold standard in terms of fusing this music together, this folk music, this jazz music, and creating this new sound, right? This new sound that is about dancing. It's about getting cleaned up in your best and coming out to the concert hall, because that's what they had at the time in New York City, and bringing these Latin communities together, but also bringing some of that African and Black community together under this new music form. I can't say that there weren't white people involved. It was about the music and the rhythm. And this was a new sound that came up, this mambo sound, right? And this mambo sound was based on the clave, right? And the clave, the rhythm of the clave is like ba 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 ba, and that becomes the metronome, the foundational rhythm that we build this mambo, which eventually becomes the salsa culture of New York City, that then goes global, right? When I say that, I mean, you go to Senegal right now, and there's bands that are playing salsa music, Latin mambo music, that's derivative of New York and Cuba and the Puerto Ricans, and now are doing it in African, right? Because there's this Yoruban drum conga undertone in all of our music. So we take this conga, this African drum, and we fuse that with the horns. We fuse that with the big band, violins, the piano, and you get this beautiful, one of a kind, unique, soulful cultural movement coming out of New York City in the 1970s, 60s, into 80s, that is its own culture, and my family, my aunts, my three aunts were lucky enough to be New Yorkers, young, into the music at this time, and so they're fully immersed in this sound. And so when I talk about that sound and that dance rhythm and that party, it's based on that mambo salsa, right? And there becomes a premier label that comes out of, all of these different concert halls, and that label is Fania, Fania. And the Fania All-Stars become kind of like the premier band. This is after Machito, right? There's other people that come in. There's Ruben Blades, there's Eddie Palmieri, there's Larry Harlow, there's Tito Puente, there's Celia Cruz. All of these people are on this one label. So it's like you have all of the top musicians in this musical genre on the same label, and they're working together to create bodies of music that are still celebrated today. Like
almost like a
Spotify
on steroids.
Fact. That's 100% facts. And then you get what we call our soneros, right? Our soneros are our singers, right? But our singers they're freestyle artists as well, right? So they're talking about their pains, their woes, their strife, the strife of being a working class person, and they're singing and they're writing songs, but they will also get on stage, and in the middle of the song, the beat breaks, and they'll hit a whole freestyle, and they'll be like, mommy in the front row, da 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 da, and this, vibration and this frequency is like the chain that I feel connected to, and that I try to make sure is present in everything that I do. And part of, like I said, my DNA, yes, but also the way that I was nurtured and raised, because there's a difference between like nature and nurture, right? And so, so Fania is this premier label. you know, every concert that they have, you know, my mom is going with her sisters. They're coming home with the vinyl. The vinyl's coming out in local mom and pop shops in Harlem and the Lower East Side and the Bronx and all of these different urban areas where the folks that support this musical genre are living. And that takes off into a worldwide movement, as I said earlier. And so, like, when I came out the womb, you know, that's what was bumping, you know, on the record player, right? Because we were doing vinyls, you know what I'm saying? So that said, that's my mom's generation. Her mother, right, grandma, my grandfather are into the old school version of that, which are called boleros. Boleros are, help me out, Flock. Slow
They're
jams?
like basically
Slow jams?
Slow jams. Yeah, I was gonna say slow jams, where it's basically super ballads.
Ballads, yes. Sad.
Boleros are like ballads.
Usually sad. Somebody
Very
left
sad
you.
about love.
You're alone.
And big vocals.
Big vocals.
Of you know,
huge
sadness.
vocals. Sadness, yes. So like that, you know, I'll tell you, the new album In the Red is coming, right? So that sound of like, yo, we're gonna cry a little tonight, that's built in. You know what I mean? By default. So like you have my mom's generation, her parents are there, right? The cousins from Connecticut, you know, everybody's pulling up on the house and we're listening to these two generations of music. Whereas we did the salsa, we did the mambo, we did the high tempo, and by the end of the night, they want to hear the saddest song where they could dance slowly, cheek to cheek, and feel kind of this blue, low kind of sexy sadness. You know what I mean? And that's La Lupe is the premier artist, you know, or one of the premier artists of that era, of that genre of these slow jams. And she's a queen. Like I would ask anybody who wants to get on the vibe.
I appreciate that you said sexy sadness, bro. Because you know what? Like I wouldn't have described it like that when I was younger and unaware, right? And I probably might not have thought to describe it like that right now. But it's important that you do describe it like that, because that's what it was essentially to our parents' parents. Right. I might have looked at it like sadness, but like to them, that's not what it was. It was a sexy sadness. And you're absolutely right. The cheek to cheek is a super, like they still do it. Like when I see them in their most, you know, private, intimate, you know, dance,
it's very intimate.
It's still cheek to cheek. And it's literally almost like you could tell that they feel the palpitations of each other's hearts. They're so close by. And it is, so it is a sexy sadness.
It's like allowing yourself to be vulnerable with the people that you love and as expressive as you can about your truest self, which is your sadness, right? Which people don't always bear and aren't always honest and like truthful about. But there's something very beautiful about that too. So when you see your grandparents embracing and listening to a song that might be construed as sad, but they're finding love in that sadness, you know, is something that's palpable and it's heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a lot of beautiful, like everything you're saying. So
my
like
man,
knowledge
so
filled and
eloquent, yo.
poetic at the same time. I'm like, the fuck can I say here?
Big facts, yo. Big facts, son.
This is
Let me say something, Holden. This is why, like, I be like, I'm like, I feel very like just like blessed as a human being. You know what I mean? Like this is what I have around me, you know, like these type of people. So it's just like this, how can you not be great when you have nothing but greatness around you?
See, but we attract likeness, right? And so everybody in our cipher is great. And that's the beauty of the dub. And it's one of the things that it's like, you can't plan that, right? You can't know you're doing it when it's doing. That is something that's bigger than all of us. And people call it a lot of different things, right? They call it God, they call it the universe, they call it Jah, they call it Jason. You know what I mean? But fundamentally it's love, and it's a vibration, and it's a thing that echoes throughout the universe that you can't quantify or anything. You know what I mean? And it happens naturally, and like attracts like. And so if you have that within you and that's what you're emanating, that's what kind of you're going to bring to you, right? And so that's how we get to, you know, Stefan, Holden, Roy, and Littyyy, bro, Flock building together, because y'all both have a deep level of love within you, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that for reals, but still, like we're like, like 20 something minutes in, and we still on that first question because that history lesson that you gave there. First of all, like anytime you ever wanted to talk about the current situation in Puerto Rico, I'm not fascinated because it's a
Current in the
weird
past.
situation when you
That's what we
start
offer.
looking into it.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
history.
to me,
I
like,
mean,
Yeah, one day we should
and
do that.
even
we should definitely,
mean,
and it's not just Puerto Rico, right? Like when
The
you
whole
look
African
at
diaspora.
you look at globalization and colonization, and you look at indigenous people, and you look at where we've been positioned through um, a worldwide economy and a quest to conquer. There's a lot to be said there, but I don't want to go too deep
Yeah.
because
no, I understand.
that's a whole
Yeah,
special.
whole
We're
nother.
gonna do
That's
the
a whole
special.
nother
Like-
3 hours by itself.
Which
Yeah.
is just like, it sounds great. Like, honestly, just the way you describe things makes it really digestible, which is
Thank
really
you, brother.
appreciated. But yeah, back to you and your place and all of this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you're,
So
let's say
that's
you're
where
like,
I came in, right? I came in
That's what you was born into.
78. You know what I'm
like, that's
saying?
it. We're still in the womb. Like, he's just popped out, and all of that
Right.
He
was
just
20
popped out to this. This
You
is
know
what
what
he
I'm saying?
popped out to. You know?
And I came out analog, you know what I'm saying? And I slowly evolved to digital, but I always retain roots in the analog world because it's important that we're grounded.
Dang, that is so
That's
beautiful.
wonderful. All right. So when you're like a little young one, are you involved in music in any way, or are you like just a fan of it that you're surrounded by?
You know, it's music, right? First, dancing, right? I think you play music for any baby and you play the right beat and the baby move. That's a fact. Any color,
Fact.
any nationality, from any place on the planet,
Fact.
they
Fact.
have no inhibitions. They have no preconceived thoughts about what they should do or not do. And so if you play the right vibration and the right tone for them, they move. And so for me, it's dance, right? It's mom's playing that music. I'm in the house, she's cleaning, she's dancing, I'm watching, I'm learning, I'm moving, I'm dancing, I'm gyrating, we vibrating. And that comes even before I learned that I had a gift for words. You know what I mean? Is that you have a gift for movement. And so, like, yeah, you know, it was dancing first in the house with moms, you know. This is pre-hip hop, you know, so to speak, before I was really introduced to rap and hip hop by my older cousin, who was like, you know, 8 or 9 years older than me, and into graffiti, and had a name belt buckle, and had fat laces and spray cans in his bedroom, and a fucking boombox and all the spike bracelets and all this fly shit that I'm just like enamored by off rip, you know, at a young impressionable age. And like him showing me a pilot marker and like how to, you know, get up and like what it's like outside, because you ain't outside if you live in my household. My mom's is like, she always told us like, the street's not gonna raise you. You know, we might live where we live and we might be in the environment and circumstance that we're in, but you're going to be raised in the house and you're going to learn right from wrong in this house, because that's always going to be out there. And what that out there has to present and offer to you is non-cipher, you know? So work. Dance.
Yeah. So you start
You know what I mean?
dancing.
Yo,
Start dancing. I get
Puff-
my windbreaker. I get my eyes
Puffy
out.
would be so happy to hear this right now. Puff
Yeah.
Daddy would hear this shit and he'd be like, "Shh, dance, baby, dance."
Dance. And honestly, like, so I got a record called Soul Movement on a new album. I think we've played it before, but like I said, for me, dance is like the most intrinsic thing for a human being. It's the way we communicate, nonverbal communication, right? It's like eyes, body movement, right? And I could have a whole dialogue with you and we don't even have to speak words. There's rhythm, there's energy. You know what I'm saying? And it's an exchange of vibration that supersedes language, or is language. You know what I'm saying? So I get that first windbreaker, that Izod, the red joint. I know my mom's got pictures of that shit somewhere off rip, and you got pictures of me early, like I'm here. But you know, I would be remiss to not say that, like I said, my father was heavily involved in promoting and still in the scene. You know, I went to Fresh Fest when I was like 7 years old in a limousine and was backstage. Fresh Fest was like the biggest hip hop concert. It's the first rap concert in New York City at Madison Square Garden. right?
Okay.
So you talk about Salt and Pepper, Run DMC, LL Cool J, everybody on the Def Jam
I
label.
believe that's the same show that Zoo mentioned. I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Zoo
I think Zoo
mentioned
went with
going
his
there
sister,
too.
right? And Zoo's a couple years older than me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But my father was actually one of the promoters of that concert, right? So I even got to go to like rehearsals for that and like meet like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, young Andre Harrell, you know,
That is
back in the
fire.
day.
That is.
You know, Houdini. This is and I like I have, you know, you have these memories that are fleeting and they're broken and they're kind of like pieces. And I could like remember when Run broke his leg, you know what I'm saying? And he's on the stage rehearsing and the cast and shit like that. You know what I mean? That I wasn't old enough to really retain the full breadth of the memory, but these are like young impressions that last, you know, and stuck to me, you know, and meeting these different people that, oh, this is Salt and Pepper, you know, and being backstage and like having a t-shirt. I wish I fucking had that shirt signed by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Meeting LL, who's like God to me at that time. You know what I mean? And like, so all of this goes into like Young Pro. You know what I'm saying? So we fast forward in from like Out the Womb to Dancing in the House to Cousin like putting me onto some game to like my dad whenever he got around to it picking me up and taking me uptown to Harlem to his store and like meeting titans of the industry and titans of our culture before they even were that. You know what I'm saying? Where they're teenage kids that are like, you know, our idols, people that everybody looked up to. And to me, they're like, oh, who's that? Oh, okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, like fond memories, you know, positive shit. But definitely all things that have kind of grown and kind of seeds that have been planted in my mind to bring me to where we are today, you know?
Those are huge memories.
Yeah, bro.
Your dad got you to meet like all the people that are like you read blogs about, like the hottest hots of 1985 type thing.
That.
And you got to go backstage and see Broken Legged, whichever one it was. Like,
Yeah.
that was a lot. That was so cool. Like, that's
Rev
cool.
Run.
Yeah, bro. Rev
Leg.
Run. Yeah. This is like when my Adidas is out. You know what I'm saying? This is like when cats is wearing lottos and you gotta have every color, you know, patch to change the color out on your lotto to match your outfit. You know, and I'm a little peewee. You know what I'm saying? And I'm dude's son. You know what I'm saying? Oh, the guy, you know, who sold X amount of tickets and promoted it. You know what I mean? So like, there's a certain like element of prestige and like flyness that I felt like being there and a part of that. You know,
you were privileged. You were
I
privileged
was
in a
definitely
way,
privileged.
and that's a beautiful blessing.
And then
All
I go right back
blessings.
to the projects. Right? It's like, yo, I'm the G. I'm Emmanuel Lewis for the night. I'm Webster in the back of the limo, and then the next day I'm the kid on the 7th floor. You know what I'm saying? Who need to go get a haircut? So, listen, I live both sides of it.
That's like a huge juxtaposition of realities for a little one not to process. There are
It's
not
a
a
real
lot
thing.
of people who really, really have to live that kind of life.
It's a fact.
That's probably why you're so empathetic, because you've seen a lot of things a lot of people haven't seen. I respect that a lot.
That's a fact, bro. Like, I could like the bottom resonates with me, so it don't matter like where I go or get. I still go back to the block. I still pull the cove and I want to walk through the P's. I want to get in the elevator. You know what I'm saying? I want to like
I can testify.
Walk the stairs.
I don't know if you're opposed against it, right? But like when we just finished celebrating the homie's last birthday, we did that right a block away from your hood or two. We was in the hood. LES.
LES,
you know,
bro.
like you got to stay connected to the soil in order to be able to like really move the way that I think that in our heart of hearts we always want to remain moving.
And I got to be honest about who I am too, regardless of where I might, you know, aspire to go eventually, right? And so like, and the kids need to see a nigga like pull up on the block and be like, yo, he's regular. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's really huge, but it's also just like, it's so cool to hear your story behind it all, right? Like, however long it takes, however much detail, to me, it's like hearing you describe all this stuff, like the context and layering that gets added it explains a lot of stuff, like the realities that go into the music. Like when
Yeah.
you listen to bars and you hear rappers describing stuff, if you don't understand what it's like to maybe grow up in New York in that time at all, then you have no fucking idea what anything is when you're listening to it. It's just sounds. So
True
it's like
story.
I think that's the real blessing of this is like even hearing how you describe the reality of these parties till 3 in the morning. Like I'm just saying, yo, like if I'm a kid
Yo,
and
Holden.
everything is
I'm
that
talking
loud
like
and stuff,
5, 6 in the morning,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
right?
G.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Nah, it
like you're
goes
gonna
all
hang
night.
out till you pass out, bro. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And when
I
you
just
ready,
like
go in the room, close the door, sleep on the coats. Fact.
Facts.
I just definitely know that
Facts.
that was the is not what my life was like. It was a lot quieter with a lot less partying till 5 in the morning. So it's just like hearing that, right? Like it's like okay, it explains certain
Facts,
energies
Dan.
more
Yup.
because that's what people grew up in, having the same clothes on for days. Serious.
Mhm.
Yup.
That's like man, even the partying in that era must have been like such
It
an
was different. I'm talking about the no seatbelts era, and
Yeah,
nobody
no
try to
seatbelts. Yeah.
run with that shit. Yo, I said it. I'm talking about the no seatbelt era. You be with your 7 cousins in the back seat of the whoop rock like this. We're gonna get to the beach. We're gonna get to Coney Island, and homie in the front, he got like a 6-pack. He's smoking a bogey on you, and
On
you're
you,
gonna wear that. You know what
on
I'm
you,
saying?
on you. Or
On you.
I think back to my uncle and like the shit that he would do around me, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like I really
Flagrant.
thought that he was rolling cigarettes.
Yeah,
I thought that
flagrant.
he was rolling cigarettes, damn it.
Flagrant. This is
Flagrant.
before child services was the number one jokers out here type shit. You know what I'm saying? Not no disrespect, but like you had to like survive first.
Yeah, nah, it was different. It was different. It was especially in New York City back in those days, right? We're talking about the crack era taking like a serious hold of the city, and just the way that I always tell people when you see Warriors, that's really what New York City was like at one point.
100%.
Like people used to like the gangs were not afraid of the cops at all. The cops were afraid of the gangs, and people would assault cops all the time and get away.
They didn't want to smoke. They didn't want to smoke.
Like regularly.
And
it
like
wasn't
you talk
later.
about the crack, like I came through like the dope, the heroin era right into the crack, right? So when you talk about my neighborhood, Alphabet City, Lower East Side, like everything from Avenue A to Avenue D, where I live, was a spot. Every block, every corner, you could pick up some smack, you could get a rock, you could get anything. And, you know, it was 80%, you know, abandoned buildings, rubble. Yep. And then everything else was a squatter's building, right? So the running water comes from the pump outside and you run the hose upstairs through the joint, and that's how you was getting washed, you know? Yeah. When you go outside and play, there's needles, there's crack vials, there's niggas dead, literally, when you walk out your door in your building.
Yep.
And this is why Pro don't do the white stuff and he don't do the craziness, because I seen mega bodies.
Yeah.
And that was my anti-drug. You know what I'm saying? Was the fiend on my block who I seen underneath a car poking with a stick for 3 hours, trying to pick up little white things, hoping he could find a rock or looking for something he never lost. And so like people be like, "Oh, you're not gonna party?" No, I'm not gonna fucking party, dog. I'll put up what I'm gonna put up, but there's a limit for me because I understand like substance abuse, and I seen in my own family people die from substance abuse generationally, right? The father, the son, the grandson. You feel me? Institutionalization where you get incarcerated with your pops. You know what I mean? And so like they're generational curses until somebody figures out like, yo, I need to crack the code and I can't do what they did. You know what I mean? So like when I say like fiends is my anti-drug, like I will call names, but I don't want to disrespect nobody, but they know who they are. They my anti. You know what I'm saying? And then when and then you see on the other side of it, you see the biggest dealers on the block, and they got everything. They got a whole floor in the building smashed out. You know what I'm saying? They got everybody's little sister, strung out on womp womp, in and out of the crib. You know what I'm saying? Doing whatever. they got all your mans in them either looking out, either holding something, moving something. You know, it's a business. You feel me? Like the street side of it is also a business. And I done seen all that. And so like that is like that's the shit that keeps me sober and in my right mind and like focused on like being over here with this. And I don't think the kids nowadays really understand that because it's all virtualized and shit like that. It's not tangible, right? You're not having to walk out your door and step over them bodies and stuff, or at least is not as prevalent as it was at one time when they were just like, we're gonna abandon y'all to live over there and y'all gonna just have to make do. You know what I mean? Like Flock said.
I think it's a what you call it, because I look at like my area of the Bronx and it's happening again, you know, and like people are like literally like sticking needles in their arms.
They strung out again.
Right
Dope
next to this 149th Street and 3rd Avenue train station, which is like a major hub in the Bronx. Like in the morning at like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, like right there in 2021. So it's just like, I think that it's just a matter of like, probably like, depends on who, right? Like if you a kid in the Bronx in 2021, you getting the same fucked up lesson that
you're getting the same education. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know, we also move in cycles, right? So there's no difference than what maybe kids in the 60s and the early 70s was feeling on the block too, right? And it's unfortunate that we as a society and as, you know, human beings, we can't learn and stand on the shoulders of our mistakes and evolve, but we will evolve up and then we'll regress. And it's like this constant cycle of things, you know, and so we, you know, I'm just out here trying to break brains out of the cycle, you know what I'm saying? Trying to like be the red pill. Fact.
But it explains why you're so passionate about it. And that's what I really like about it. Like everything you described is really, really serious. There's not a lot of people that really, I think, especially in my age group or younger, really went through that, like to any kind of a degree. And it gets scaled back to at least, because at least in Montreal, like they hide it, right? Like they created safe places and they made sure that you can't see it. Like whether it still happens to a degree, I don't know, but they definitely made efforts so that you don't ever encounter it like that in public no more. So none of us really see it like that. Unless you happen to be in that one part of town.
And that's the thing about New York City, right? And it's like, but you can get on the subway and go 2 stops and land on Park Avenue, and these motherfuckers got doormen. You know what I'm saying? Every building is pearly white. And it's, at the same time, in parallel with the shit I'm telling you, is like there's people living their best lives. They go into to Long Island, out to Long Beach on the weekend, and the Hamptons and all that, and they could get out and come back to the doorman building and owning a brownstone and all this fly shit, because it's ultimately it's always about bread and the haves and the have-nots. You know what I'm saying? And so like they're gonna let us just you know crumble, fall and fall, you know, on our swords and on our drugs and on whatever it is the substances are that they pumping into the communities, you know. And so it is dead real, Stefan. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm one of the few dudes that I know that I used to ride bike with and play baseball with and all that. I was able to buy a house that's able to like take my son on a road trip and able to spend quality time with my kids and be like, yeah, we could go out to dinner and I could buy you whatever you want. You know what I mean? And like I said, that's because my mom said she's gonna raise me in the house. And that happened with the stick, not the carrot, my dude. That's a fact.
Fair enough. So I guess that's a really huge environmental context for you being young. You're at home, you're learning to dance. And yeah, your dad brings you and exposes you to all the hip hop, or your cousin, exposes you to it, which leads to your dad bringing you to it in like a scale that is pretty unimaginable for someone like me. And then at what point, like, do you kind of get more interested in actually pursuing it? Is this something that comes later in life, or are you like kind of a fan for a while?
You know, the pen, I picked it up early, like elementary school, poetry, right? Different contests in class, write a poem about this, that, or the third. And it just came out of me, bro. It's not a thing that I like had to sit and think about and be like, oh, how am I gonna make words rhyme, or how am I gonna do this assignment? So like again, like Mom Duke, so she probably got files somewhere. She'll pull out some like joints that I wrote in like third, fourth grade that are just, you know, poems and what have you. But the rhyming aspect of it and the rapping component and like barring up, I want to say that happens like junior high school for me. You know what I mean? Like, because honestly, like I was into vandalizing shit first, right? Like I went from dancing to like, yo, let's go steal paint and let's go tag up, because that was like the big
So
thing
you
on
you
the
were
block.
involved in that.
Hell yeah, crazy. Like
So
like
it's crazy.
like 11, 12 years old. Like, man, listen, single moms, I commend y'all, because y'all gotta work. You gotta put that dinner on the table. You gotta do 100 things. And when your kid is left to his own devices, he gonna find ways to occupy that time. And for me, like I said, I got introduced to the pilot marker. I got introduced to like getting up. You know, I think I used to write Z-A-Z-E, Zays or something like that. Because I remember getting the instructions like, yo, it got to be 4 letters. You got to be able to write it fast. And you got to be able to just try to get first all over your building, all over your neighborhood, subway lines. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, you know, me and my boys would go to the stationery store and steal markers and, like, just go around doing our pee-wee tagging, right? And, like, that's how we would spend our time. We had, you know, BMX bikes. Everybody in the hood knows when you was at that age, you had a BMX bike with pegs on it, or your man had the bike, and one of y'all would be on the back with the pegs, and the other dude would be riding the bike. Or you'd be on the handlebars, and that's how we got it around, Brody. Like we would ride around on our BMXs, and like in my hood in LES, it was definitely separated. Like there was parts of the block where like the guys from the avenue, they don't go to the hill because there's beef over whatever. The dudes from the hill, they maybe don't go to Smith Projects because there's, you know, whatever. If you lived in, you know, Alphabet City, 12th Street, whatever, compost housing, you don't go to like Delancey Street because the DSB Delancey Street boys will beat your ass. And this is when violence was different. Like, and I think this is important too. It's easy to cap off and like shoot people. I come from an era like where like you will get beat up, stabbed, cut, hit with a bottle. Like you would maybe not die, but you would really get fucked up bad, bro. And like everybody that I know, if you was in a crew, you needed safety. So you had a crew, and it was mostly the dudes from your block that were local to you. So that when you get on the bus and you got to go shopping to get some sneakers on Delancey, we going 6 deep, and you got the knife, you got the razor, you got the bat, you got the cane. Oh, canes was big too. Like we didn't need canes when we was 12 years old, but we had canes, Brody. You know what I'm saying? This is when you could go to like the Chinatown spot and get ninja stars, nunchucks with spikes, brass knuckle rings, and like we was putting that shit to use, right? And it would be about maybe it was about a tag, and somebody crossed out your tag, and they was buffing you, and they was putting their own shit over you, and like you got to fight behind that. That's a respect thing, Brody. And like you can't just like keep buffing me and not think that I'm not gonna find you on the block or catch you on the wrong side of Houston Street one day and fucking bust you in the knee and hit you with a bottle and beat you up, because it was just a different kind of violence. It was more hands-on. Like you had to get up close on your op. You couldn't be across the street or riding by.
There wasn't a lot of shooting back then. It was mostly like honestly, it was a lot of stabbing, you know? Yeah. So it's like, yo, and stabbing is one of those like, yo, that's a very like
it's a gruesome thing. Crime. Yeah.
So it's gruesome and it's personal, you know? Like
I seen dudes get banked with a hammer. You know what I'm saying? Like boom.
Yeah.
That hammer to the head, your head bleeds a lot, King.
Done.
Like so like I had early experiences with like being involved in and seeing violence and having like that kind of violence around me. And like honestly, it makes you more reserved with your violence too, right? Because like once you cross that line to like, yo, it's on site, and it's TOS, and if I see you as terminate on site, kid, and your crew and my crew, like we going at it for real, you could be with your moms coming out the building, and if an op sees you, they're gonna roll up on you and hit you with something, or like punch your mom in the face. Like, it's a different psychology. It's almost like prison when you live in these kinds of hoods. You know what I mean? It is like that. It is like being incarcerated. You know, institutionalization at a very young age. You learn like words is words, Brody, but like there's gonna be action behind it. Like dudes like corner you. They put the razor on your face. You know what I'm saying? That orange click razor, and it's rusty. And you trying to give somebody gangrene and make sure that they get a big womp on their face. You giving people keloids behind it. And that didn't stop when I was like 12. That like kept going all the way to like the tunnel, to like club exit, to like speed.
I mean, when you think about it, bro, you know, like, it's unfortunate to say, and like not in particular, but like the Justice for Junior kid, it's the same exact type of things, just another level, right? And it's like, I remember that when like the Dominican influx came to New York City, like they played with machetes heavy from jump in the 90s. You know what I mean? In the middle of the 90s. So like when I saw the Justice for Junior thing, I was like, yeah, that's not no new thing to the Bronx. You know what I mean? Bro. Like I seen that action before. So like, yeah, that's how it always used to be though. You know,
like dudes would wear a $150, a scarf from your ear to your chin, almost with pride. Like, and if you've seen the dude, that means he either went to Spofford, and Spofford was a juvenile detention facility where like a lot of my homies started their career in like real crime. You know what I mean? Like you 11, 12, they try to put you in a halfway, or they try to foster you or something like that, and you keep being a repeat. They send you up to Spofford, and they used to call it camp. And once you go to camp, that's when you might be 14 and you in there with 16, 17-year-olds, and like those are damn near grown men, and they primed and seasoned, and you got to be ready for action at a different level. You know what I mean? And so like dudes acting tough and like talking crazy on records and like making all these sound effects and all this stuff is like, all right, bro, but has anybody ever hit you in the ribs with a bat, or like hit you with a golf club in your head? You know what I mean? Like, it would change the way you view violence and the way you conduct yourself. You know what I mean? Sometimes almost, I don't want to say that. We're going to leave that there. We're going to leave it right there.
I appreciate everything you're saying still. It's like...
Sorry, I was going on a tirade, my bad.
No, but like, it's called bridge the gap, right? That's what we do. We bridge gaps. Not everybody's willing to say the kinds of things you're saying or to express it the way that you're expressing it, because it's probably painful.
It's 100, bro. It's 100. Yeah.
But it even explains why people say shit like we roll X number of people deep. Like, I never really thought that you might actually need that just to go to the store.
Yo, you definitely gotta roll at least three. Because if you get into something, you got to be able to you got to be able to back to back when they try to jump you, right? And what does that mean? That means that me and Flock is walking down the block, and 5 dudes come around the corner and they want to set it on us. And me and Flock are going to have to stand back to back, and we're going to have to fight so one of us falls down, or we can open it up enough to like make that move.
Move.
And hop that train. And like hope that the train is coming, because that's another thing. You go hop the train and you get stuck in the train station. You got to run the tunnel, because like that happens too.
Yeah, no, big facts. But you know what? By the way, that brings us back to what I had said, right? Where like Warriors is like a real true story in type New York. It's not a true story, right?
But it's real.
That is absolute real to New York City, and that's the way that it used to be, and it maintained like that for a very long time. Until about like the late 90s, you know, and it started evolving around then, you know, and gentrification took a grip on the city, but like it still has those elements, and like where you would think it's just like, oh, it's 2021 and like things don't work like that no more. It's just like, nah, like they you know, they kind of still do in certain places in New York City, and there's certain neighborhoods. Like I make fun of my Brooklyn friends with the gentrification in Brooklyn, right? And I'm like, you know, they took the heart of Brooklyn, they took the store, and you know, and they get offended, and rightfully so, right? And then they'll be like, yeah, we'll still go to X, Y, and Z, and they start naming the places. And it's just like, yeah, it's not gentrified there, you know, like it's still bad there. You know,
Right.
so like it's still bad in a lot of
We
places in New York City.
yeah, bro.
And
It's
that's just the
real,
way
and
it is.
it's bad in a lot of places. But you know,
Yeah.
crack and guns change the tone of the violence and the type of violence. You know what I mean? So now, like, there was always cats who had the revolver, right? Like you would have the OG, but that was like the older dudes, the OGs, the cats who was really slinging some weight, or they would run in the block. They definitely had the pistol on them. They would definitely blick off on somebody. But when you're talking about the lieutenants and the street running kids, like the violence was very hands on. You had to get your hands dirty. You know what I mean? Um, so it like I just like violence to me is different because I like seen it in a different way and it's graphic. You know what I mean? And like a 14-year-old with a machine gun shooting you out the car across the street and down the block and blicking at you and you getting hit is different from a 14-year-old getting in a street fight and getting stabbed and getting his face cut up, you know what I'm saying, and getting like hit with bottles and all kind of crazy shit. It makes you feel different. Like it's dark.
Yeah, it's always dark in New York City when it gets violent, and it always goes to the darkest places. That's why, like, you know, like for New Yorkers, it's one of those things where, like, I don't think most people understand like the level of things that we usually end up seeing before we're even like full grown adults. So it's just like the mentality just changes and shifts the way that you are as a person. It also, you know, humbles you really quick, and it teaches you like no matter how much you might be the shit, it's like, yo, bro, like that's why songs like from Biggie that are like niggas bleed just like us is just for a reason, because like everybody in New York City has always had that mentality. Like everybody and anybody can get got, no matter how big and tough you are. There's always gonna be somebody bigger and tougher. And if they're not bigger and tougher, then we gang up and we'll jump you. And we're gonna get you either which way. We're gonna get you. We're gonna find a way to get you. And the harder that you make it for us to get you, the harder that we're gonna make it on you when we get you. And the most sick, depraved things you can think of. That's why, like, you have that skit from like Wu-Tang and Method Man, that because like it's not like they said that was like a game that they play. It's like, I mean, it's a game all New Yorkers play because they do it in real life. These are things that they think up, and like when you do dark side things, like these are the things that get brought up, you know, and
it's like a psychology. It's like
we all kind of grew up in.
We'll celebrate the most violent one of us. You know what I mean? And that will be the alpha, because we'll be like, yo, but did you see what he did to Son? He cut his ear off. You know what I mean? Like, so, all right, what was we talking about?
All right, so basically you were into graph writing stuff, which
so I was
recently
into the graffiti first.
Is different than the aerosol art mural things, which is a different culture entirely.
So like, that's like, so now I'm banging with the street art thing and like the mural art, because that's all like in the DNA of where I came from, but it is a distinctly different thing. Like graffiti writers and like graffiti artists and street muralists and artists and some of them overlap, but it is a different thing, dude. Like that graffiti shit is still street culture. Like getting up, tags, boom, your name, your crew, your block, right? It's like you talking about like people like Taki. You talking about people like Cost. You talking Cost and Revs, who like they're kind of street graffiti artists. You talk about like Cope too, and these are just names of people that are like big, who were like graffiti artists, like King Cope, King of New York graffiti, like got the most ups, runs all the train lines. You know what I'm saying? So this is like writing your name, developing your hand style first and being able to make your letters look fly, and then you escalate that to being able to do like bubble letters and a throw up quick, which means that you got a quick bubble style that you can do.
So I was actually so I was outside today because I was looking around. My neighborhood has a lot of both the more the artsy side, the mural stuff, but it also has a lot of writing. I never really like looked at the differentiation before, but man, there was like this one thing, and it was just bubble letters of the guy's name for like the whole thing. Like it looked like it took all fucking night at some point, and then I realized that's not like the most legal place to get to.
No,
that's like
and that's what it was about, right?
That's what it's about. Yeah.
And like that's why there's still
infamy.
There's still a tension in the streets around this, right? Because what happened is like street art almost like they co-opted the art but not the street part of it, right? And so now you have people who are getting paid and commissioned to do murals in places where graffiti artists were like climbing over buildings and hanging off the side just to get up, to get their name up, because that's about your numbers, that's about your style and how dope you could do your shit, but also it's about like, well, can you do all of the competencies? Can you write your tag dope? Can you do a floater, a quick fill-in? Can you do a piece, right, which is a little bit more block letterish? And can you do a wild style and characters, right? So there's like, it's like the MC challenge or like an MC. Like, can you freestyle? Can you write a song? Can you spit over any beat? Like, you gotta have certain levels of talent, and then you also have to get up and go out in the street and do that shit so that everybody can recognize who you are, so that you can move up and to gain acclaim and fame, right? So you have that. And then you have kids that are like literally like enamored by that, but then go and take an art class, right? And they learn how to do spray paint art or how to adapt their art to large format. And I mean, that's a whole nother episode. And so there's still a rub with that, right? Because now you got cats that are like, yo, this motherfucker just got this wall on Bushwick right by the train station and did a mural and he made 5 racks, but he's not from the block, A. He's not in the streets, A, and like shaking hands and kissing babies and giving homage to the dudes on the block. So I'm going to go toy his shit and write right over it. And I'm not going to do art over it, really. I'm going to do my letters and my hand styles because I want that spot. And so what happens to that artist? They be feeling away, right? And then now we got something bubbling, right? So there's a large conversation in my community in the streets around art and graffiti and shit about like what's what, what's valid, who gets props, who gets to do a mural that stays up and don't get touched because they kissed the right rings and gave the right props, versus who just pulled up and tried to put pretty colors and a flower on some shit and they shit is toy and they're gonna get ragged. So I come from that era of like, yo, I gotta get my hand style up. I gotta have great penmanship with the way I write my shit, and I have to get it up in as many places as possible. Then I gotta have a crew of other people from my block, and we gotta have a 3-letter or like some kind of code that we use, whether is TSK or K or whatever it is that stands for our crew. And then we gotta go to other neighborhoods and put our shit up so they could see us popping. Then we gotta go all city. And we got to hit train lines and everything so we could get our props up and our popularity up. And then on the other side of that, we got to be able to fight and defend that shit when people start going over it and fuck them up, because we got to be the most violent and the most scary so that when they see our tag, they don't want to write over our tag because we will bust them up. So that was a thing that I was into for a little while. And
that
you also were
why so many people have such nice handwriting.
Yes. Because you gotta have your letter styles gotta be dope. Because if you start going and you're getting up everywhere and you're putting your shit up and it don't look fly, you a toy. And somebody more senior than you or somebody who's on the come up is gonna go over your shit and they're gonna test you. And if you pussy and you're not gonna fight and step to them and handle your business, you done. Quit. Don't do that no more. Fact.
Yo, that's big, man. Like, and I appreciate it because it's very correlated to hip hop. So like,
yeah,
everything we're saying here is super relevant to your musical journey because it's gonna carry on into everything else you're doing. But you're adding so much flavor to it. Like sometimes people come through and like they describe stuff and it's almost like blind cooking. You get the gist of it, but it doesn't necessarily add the full flavor spectrum of what was happening. I feel like you're painting these giant detailed pictures, like somebody said, like you were prepared, you knew exactly what you were coming in for. And
no, I didn't honestly. And like I just knew I had to get to cousin's house, get by the pool so you could see that we doing it in Miami, and make sure my Wi-Fi was cracking. My son is watching a movie in the other room with Cuzzo. And I just was like, I'm gonna have a conversation with Flacko and the homie from Canada, and we're gonna just talk our shit. You know what I mean? It's a
It's
fact.
wonderful. So you're just really just ready to go. I fucking love it, man.
No,
It's-
this is
it's-
just my life. Like this is like
Yeah.
this is who I am, bro.
It's you know what it is. I think I don't want to presume to like speak for you, bro. So you can stop me at any point, right? But like I think what it is that when you think back to a certain time, you're transported back to those emotions and those feelings that you had at that time. And so that comes out when you're speaking about that thing and that time, and that's all that it is. But you know what? I appreciate that because that gives me more of a feeling than somebody who maybe doesn't articulate themselves in that way.
And I can't be like thinking about a script of my life, right? I'm just having a conversation with the homies and we talking and you asking me questions. And that puts me in a place where like I gotta think and reflect and figure out like what I was doing at these different times. So I was stealing paint. I was buying loose cigarettes in a brown paper bag. They were like a nickel if you went to the right spot. I don't know why they were selling cigarettes to like 11 and 12-year-old and 13-year-old kids. I was wearing the same cool outfit that I thought was the best look for my street personality. I was carrying many weapons because, if your knife drops, you got to have your razor. And if your razor drops, then you got to have the mini bat in your sleeve. Everything was super oversized, size 40 jeans, double XL tops, big boots in case you got to stomp shit out. You know what I mean? And you got to always look on some like clandestine shit like, yo, don't cross the street over there. Those guys look spooky. But all of that is like survival shit. And here comes my cousin Betty. She could vouch for all this shit. You know what I mean? I think we smoked our first bogeys together.
We don't need a vouch.
No, I know.
We take you at your word because we know that you're a man of your word.
That's 100. So when did rapping start? I think sometime around like that 14, like junior high school, going to high school era for sure. 40 ounces, Cisco, Blackberry Brandy, Crazy Horse, St. Ides, Dirt Trees with mass seeds from the guys on 8th Street, the Jamaicans, because I lived in Alphabet City. So the Dreads was right up the block for me on St. Mark's. This is before like Chronic and Crippy and all this high-end boutique weed shit happened. It was very dirt, partially mixed. You know what I mean? And it was Phillies, it was White Owls.
It was back in the days we were from, but nobody was refined back then. You look at the stuff that they were smoking in Woodstock. I'm like, what is this? Pictures of sticks and stems.
Yeah.
What is that? I think Dutchess came later, sis.
Those came later for me, for sure.
Danny mentioned Dutchess and big sis Danny. And,
no, my shit was we was doing Phillies.
Yeah, Phillies and White Owls
early.
Was the first thing first.
Yeah, but definitely blunts.
Later,
yeah.
We got on.
And then Dutchess came in when I was like, I think I was like maybe in 10th grade, like when the Dutchess came out. And then and then they came with the honey, and then they came with the chocolate, and then and then vanillas finally
flavors.
And then
vanilla,
I think if we take vanillas, then that fast forwards me to like 1997-ish. And then we was like, yo, we got to roll these a little lighter because we had already been puffing for so long and our young lungs were already crying. And we would start cutting them in half, rolling them with less paper and trying to be like conscious of like how weighted the cigar was. And this is when you actually had to know how to crack it. You had to know how to prepare it. It wasn't like, yo, I'm going to get a roll up and put it in the roll up and it's ready to go. Nah, bro.
No.
Even your Philly, you had to have. That's an acquired talent because if you get a stem and you didn't pick it, it's gonna pop through. Then you gotta white paper it. Like, bro,
man.
Like there's levels out here, Daddy.
You don't know. Like you know what it is for me to get my name Dutch in New York City. Like that's not that's like I worked hard for my name. Like it was it's a multi-tiered thing, and like and I had to be able to roll in the cold. That's how you get a name like Dutch. Is being
you got to be able to roll in the cold, standing up, outside, in the wind.
Outside with the wind blowing, and it's still to be finessed and skilled, and everybody be able to enjoy what we all paid for together. Like
that's a key word.
Like that's how you get a name.
You
like
said
that.
a key word, finesse. You got to be able to finesse the Dutch. You got to be able to finesse it.
Facts.
And that's New York slang.
That's amazing. I tried to roll one time recently, and it was fucking awful, and I was mad at myself. So
Yeah,
I just
bro.
unrolled it.
And then if you was lucky enough and you was smart enough, you had some shorties in your crew because they had the small dexterous fingers and they would be able to finesse it even better. And then that's a come up. You're
This is a great conversation.
These are facts.
For real, I'm loving this a lot.
My wife throws my blunts nowadays for that same reason.
See, te lo dije.
I wish.
And so I'm 14, I think, at this point in my story arc. And then we're doing all that, you know, getting right. And we used to frequent a couple of pool halls and different places. And you know, that's when beatboxing hit
pool halls are big in New York?
Well, me, I live downtown.
Oh, never
so
mind.
I was
They're big
close
here too.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I said that. They're big here too.
Yeah. There's
bro.
movies based on like pool hall hustling in New York City.
And then that, you know, and then like I always been a real like open-minded person. Like, and I come from a neighborhood where we grew up with every different race. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like my man Fung or whatever, he Chinese, but he down. He wears low. He wear Timbs, like, and he ready to like get biz if we need to. Like my other man was black. My other man might be Trinidadian. So I lived in like in a diverse place. Like I hung out with everybody. So like we would go to the Chinese pool halls and we had love in there. We always show respect. And there's like the triads and the ghost shadows time. And they had a little bit of a war thing going on. So there was some more ultra violence that we would bear witness to, but we neutral. They don't mess with the young kids. Yeah, they just here to like hang out and drink 40s and shit. So like that's a whole nother era. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because we know we sold fireworks for the mafia. Like we did a lot of different things. You know what I mean? But it was all about.
You reminded me of Wild. I'm like, word, yo, I remember that. Oh my god.
This is all like,
yo, that's
your
crazy.
life is like
I forget more than I remember sometimes.
Yeah.
Man, it's like a movie. Like I watched this shit on TV. Like I went through this whole phase where I was like scouring the internet for every documentary I could find on what it was like to like grow up there in these different areas or the crime syndicates and the impact. And I'm like, no shade. You're like the guy that was doing the things at the bottom level there.
What's up, bro?
It's like kind of crazy.
Yeah, the basil dead, man. It was too hot out here today.
I told her to put it under the tree.
Yeah,
that's some New York shit right there too, right? Just randomly have another conversation with somebody.
Yo, I'm at the bro's house. You know what I mean?
New York is like, yo, I can entertain everybody, fam. Trust me. I got more than enough time for all y'all. You good?
Nah, I'm letting y'all soak.
I'm
letting you soak in on those. You know what I mean?
Like, we got to see the basil plant, so it was a big win.
Nah, the basil plant is finished, bro. It was so hot.
He brought it
sunny
behind you.
Yeah,
so
no, it's over there, but it's looking like this right now. This morning when they had it out, it was like, whoo, gonna put that on your pasta, you're gonna get fresh. Now, I don't know.
It is real nice today.
That healthy food talk, though, you know what I mean? That healthy eating is very important.
You know what I'm saying? That's that organic.
Very, very important.
So where we at in our story right now, fellas?
1992. You're starting.
Let's start talking about this rapping journey, right? Because
that's what happens. You keep getting more contexted, which is great, and then you remember another detail about it, which is amazing. So
to how you started
rapping.
So all this is happening, right? And I'm living this duality, right? Because I'm also pretty smart in school, you know, top tier class in the school, trying my best to like make mom's proud so she don't whip my ass no more or punish me no more or like not give me no more bread. This is when you had a paper bus pass type shit before they killed the token and before the Metro card era, just to give y'all like time and context. And so I get accepted to go to Brooklyn Tech High School. I take the test for specialized high school in New York City. And this is the thing, like a lot of kids do it. There's 3 special schools in the city, like Stuyvesant being the premier school, and you have to have a certain score. And then right behind that is Bronx Science being number 2, and then Brooklyn Tech being the best of the 3, but being ranked 3rd. Fuck your lives. So I get into tech, and so now I take this whole situation to Brooklyn. You know what I mean? And I meet the homie O. That's where I met Littyyy, the Dub Divis. And I had already been kind of doing freestyling and things like that locally with the homies, but then it takes on this new level because now it's boroughs, right? And like you gotta like get on that lunch table and you gotta be able to hold it down and you gotta be able to get in the cipher. And you still, and this is like, and I'll say this, like the DCEPs was strong in my school because it was in downtown Brooklyn, right? If it has that don't know, the DCEPs or the Decepticons was a gang that was running around New York City, based predominantly out of Brooklyn in the early 90s. And they were cutting and robbing.
Few people have mentioned the DCEPs on the show already. So
yeah, so there was definitely, you know, young 14-year-old pro, like goes in 9th grade at the bottom of the tier. And, you know, there's all this stuff happening. So I'm having to take now the subway into Brooklyn, getting off at J Street Borough Hall. On the F. I don't know if y'all people out there don't know what that is, but that's like downtown Brooklyn is like
the train.
That's like
the train. All our trains are letters and numbers. Back. So it's like almost every letter of the alphabet, A, B, C, D. There's like a different train for every letter, and there's a different train for every singular digit.
So I get to Brooklyn, you know, and I take my street wits and my school wits, and now I start meeting other masterminds from other places, you know what I mean? And the freestyle starts to accelerate based on just the competitive nature and the intellectual prowess of these kids, because a lot of these kids are not only savvy and from the streets and from different neighborhoods, but they're also smart because they took this test and they had to get enough points to get in. So I'm dealing with like the upper top 10%. My battery getting low, so we're gonna have to plug in soon. Of New York City. And I got roasted a couple times, heavy. You know what I'm saying? Like 100%. But that makes you step your stuff up. And then we got kids coming from other schools, you know, neighboring places. They want to get in on the freestyles outside after school and things of that nature. And it's a very organic. It's almost like a movie at this point, right, Stefan? Like to your point, it's like when you imagine kids with JanSport backpacks and like North Face jackets in a circle. Like
I don't think he imagines those labels, but I think he imagines what you're trying to paint for him.
I get the idea of what we're describing because, like you said, it's almost like you said at the beginning. You don't want to come off sounding so almost cliche with it, but this is your life. But your life is the life that the cliche is based off of by the circumstances of when you were born and the reality that you had to face. So it's kind of incredible to talk to you because, again, the flavor that you add to it. And the next time I'm going to hear any record from New York, it's going to have more context.
100% truth, my bro. So like I'm in those circles, right? And then I'm also living in Manhattan, and me and my best friend and you know, one of my several crews at the time, we walk to the village every day, damn near, right? So we're going to West 3rd Street by the basketball courts, and we're going to Washington Square Park, and you know, we're seeing, you know, the Mos Def and the Talibs in ciphers. You know what I'm saying? We're seeing the AL Skills and the punch and the words and all of these stars and legends from like Lyricist Lounge. Like, these are the same dudes that are in the same cipher with you, right? And you might not be feeling your shit, but you got to get in there and you got to do your 8 or your 16 and get your quick in and outs. You know what I mean? So it was very much like, for me, more of an impression and more of an education in hip hop and like rap culture at this point now, right? I'm still doing the graffiti, we're still doing all that, but now there's like this hyper focus coming around. Yo, I gotta have some bars and some punches that I could use in some of these ciphers that are gonna get people to go, oh, and to be able to give you that nod when you walk away, or to see you the next time and be like, oh, let him rock, let him go next, let him get a 16 off right now. Because if you didn't do that in your first 1 or 2 ciphers, you're cooked. You're not gonna get to rap until everybody's done their thing, and then you just rapping for like whoever's left. And you never want to be that guy, right? So it's making me trying to like think about different ways to sharpen my sword to be able to like get that recognition and that acknowledgement from really the upper tier, because these guys are already nice. These guys are a few years older than me. They're definitely more, seasoned and well groomed. Because I'm kind of like a few years younger than these different groups of folks that I'm talking about. And so like where I'm 16, maybe these guys are 19, right? Or 20 years old and have been doing this a little bit longer. So I'm having to like really brush up and hone my craft to a different level. So all I do, in Brooklyn Tech is we go to school when we go, and that's a whole nother thing. We go to our places where we go to get our things that we do. We partake, and then we freestyle. And I'm freestyling over like anything. Like you could be going, and I got a verse for that. You might be playing Jimi Hendrix, Castles Made of Sand in the background, and there's a guitar solo part, and it's like, yo, I want to eat over that part. Just play that part right there, right? So like there's this whole era for me during 1994, 5, 6, where I'm really just like, hanging out heavy, cutting class, doing all the wrong things, trying to navigate and still pass my classes, but also really trying to think about how could I be a better rapper and how can I like not get dissed when it's my turn to rap in the cypher.
That's pretty fucking fresh, stills, because it like just the idea of the quality threshold being all these people who are just ahead of you in the game.
Right.
And effectively, the gatekeeping isn't so much people who are interested in money or whatever. It's just, we understand the dope vibe, and you got to make sure the vibe stays dope or you don't get your opportunity. But you also have to step up and prove it, or else nobody's going to let you have it. Like, man, that's a lot of big things about this situation it's almost like how business works. And you have to almost take that ethic to it. And I really like that you said that.
And it was 100% it was non-commercial, right? Like this is like about pride. You know what I mean? And it's it's that same competitive and prideful energy that you're bringing to the tagging or to the like trying to learn some floor moves so that you could be impressive, or like it's like this is like in New York City, like during this time, everything is about your status and your pride, period. There's nothing else. I'm not trying to be anybody who's on, or like I'm not pursuing professional rap goals. I'm just trying to have the homies, the people on the block, and the peers that I consider my peers respect me. And so like that's kind of the context for all of that.
Yo, and I think that's why I was excited you brought up the Mark Graffiti side of it, because somebody else had recently told me it's weird. Like nobody talked about graffiti, and then it has this been with this interview series. Like somebody mentions it at one point. I think Lush One was the first one to bring it up, and then it's literally come up almost everybody I've talked to since, and it's been like up until this moment. So I got the baseline to allow your flavor to really be like appreciated. And it's really cool how it worked out like that. But that's why I've had a feeling it brought into that cypher energy, because all the things you were describing there, it's just everybody older now kind of doing this more verbal version of it. Not necessarily everybody, but like the general culture of it. It's almost that's why when I hear people being like, yo, these words thing, it's a way to avoid the violence. It like adds this whole extra layer to it, because you can just say what you got to say without.
But don't get it twisted. There was violence behind the rap too.
Yeah, there was.
Like you don't go battle somebody on some street stuff and say something that's like ultra left and not have to put some hands behind it.
Yeah.
Period.
There was a lot of like I'd say that to people all the time where I'm like, yo, back in the days before there was cameras like that recording battles, like, yo, our lives were literally on the line. Like for me to have the balls to say some of the shit that I would say to people to their face, like it was a matter of like I was putting my word up, like, yo, I'm willing to fight right now over this shit. You already know what it is,
and,
you know?
and you really got to be ready to.
Yeah, that's the way that it was.
And it's win or lose too. Let me just be clear, right? Like you could get duffed out, or you could take an L, but you got to stand up.
Yeah.
If you coming back outside, or you can't come back outside if you don't stand up.
Yep.
Fact. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you on the block too, is that you get violated and you don't stand up, like win, lose, or draw, because then you can't show up no more. Like once your card get revoked, you don't get a pass again. You go to a different neighborhood. You don't hang out on your own block no more, bro. because you don't get no wins out here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's serious.
Yeah.
That explains like again, it just explains more stuff. So you're coming from that environment, but how are you like getting your music? Because you never really talked a lot about what your interest
Yeah.
or your
So
preferences.
I'm getting my music from mixtapes, right? Like I was like I said, I'm from the block, so like Burkina for me was like 8 or 9 blocks away. Burkina is like the premier distribution spot for every underground mixtape in Manhattan, down lower Manhattan. Like if you got a hot mixtape out, if you Ron G, if you Kid Capri, if you anybody, your mixtape's at Burkina. So me and my best friend Jose Velez, at the time we used the boombox guys. Like we was always walking around with the boombox with a new mixtape and or recorded tape from Hot 97 or one of the other hip hop stations. So what that means we got one TDK, 120-minute, and on Friday night when whoever's DJing comes on, we let that joint roll and we record it and we try to capture every song, you know, that was coming out at the time so that we could be familiar with the new heat even before it's going to the main programming of the station, right? Because like on a late night Friday or something like that for us is when you're catching like exclusives, you know, and you having different DJs play those joints that are not going to be in the regular daytime rotation, right? So for me, like Video Music Box, huge. Ralph McDaniels, thank you. Thank you very much, Uncle Ralph. You know what I'm saying? The visuals, being able to come home after school, switch my mom's TV to UVF or whatever the alternate section was, and then click to 35 on the alternate and get the antenna right, the spin antenna, and tune in. So I was receiving a lot of input directly from Video Music Box. Ralph was putting me on to what's hot, what's coming out, who's popping. You know what I'm saying? Redman, Wu-Tang. That's the era for me. Fushnikins. You know what I'm saying? The Artifacts. But even before that, you know, like I said, I had older cousins and they would put me on to Game. They would bring me like a little tape that they was listening to. So I'm absorbing like different levels of the music, right? Things that are coming out and emerging at almost an underground level, and things that are like, all right, we're gonna play this 1 or 2 records on the regular New York City radio station, right? But fucking Video Music Box, bro, that should change my whole life. And then it's visual too, right? So I'm getting to see these dudes, you know, that they look like me, they moving like I'm moving, they obviously wearing the same kind of like gear that I'm rocking, and they sonically taking me to new places, you know. And I would be remiss not to mention my stepfather, who was also just a cool ass dude from the block, who was like, yeah, listen to Doggy Style when you're like X years old. Let's listen to this shit together in the car and play it loud and roll around. You know what I'm saying? And like really put me on to game like that as well. So there's a blend of different inputs, you know, coming in. I'm gonna have to plug in, so give me a minute. I'm gonna work on this shit while we chat.
No worries, man. Still, I think that's really cool that you brought that up because again, it's part of like how people get music is an interesting angle on the sense that I come from I come from like this whole era of internet. So like
Yeah, that didn't exist for me, bro. Like that whole internet. I can't say that by the time I wasn't like 20 or something, I had a tech job, so I was actually able to set up like AOL server on like a hidden landline and like download all night and then come to the office next day and have like 30 different albums downloaded and sit in the basement and listen to like all the new shit. But that comes like kind of later for me.
a little bit, yeah. That sounds blesser than my experience of LimeWire, but like for real,
I'm gonna still try to like keep talking and shit while I'm charging. So that comes a little bit later for me. You know what I mean? But
just
said,
like,
man, Uncle Ralph, thank you, bro.
So basically, you're going through this era. Then you're getting kind of your skills getting honed. You've already got the poetic, so you understand poetry
I don't
going
know if
on.
you can hear me because I can't hear you.
I can hear you.
You're gonna need some pods. You don't got pods?
Come on, man. You radiating your head. What's wrong with y'all?
What?
Well, you could radiate your head a little bit so you could hear us.
Nah, I can hear you now. It was on mute. When I switched off the analog wire, it muted.
Fair enough.
And there's a kid's birthday party behind me too, so enjoy.
No, I'm
Yeah,
enjoying it
I
for
heard
real.
the kids.
We were hearing
They got
it,
a
and I
bounce
was-
house and everything. I'm mad. They didn't have a bounce house when I was a kid.
Nope.
They
No
didn't have a
bounce
bounce
houses
house
for
when I was a
you.
kid
Down
I
in
either.
the
never even
hood.
had the McDonald's party, bro. I'm mad.
I got
I
one
did get the
McDonald's party. My
McDonald's
parents
party.
gave me a McDonald's party when I was 1 year old. But I'm just like, why'd you do it then? I didn't care when I was 1. What the fuck? You robbed me of that. I should have had that at 6 years old. Fuck.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've been to a couple of those. I got blessed. I'm not gonna lie. McDonald's parties were nice. All right, so basically, yeah. So you got the poetry unlocked from when you're young, so you already understand kind of the writing side of it.
Oh.
It's always comes simple to you. You've learned how to sharpen your pen game and go through the art of performing and impressing other people, becoming fearless with it, etc., etc. on that front of it. So,
Yeah.
at what point does it like elevate to you start making songs? Or
Songs. See, that's another thing. Like for me, like it was just verses, right? It was like, yo, I gotta have killer verses. Like songs, concepts, like what's that? Like I got like 12, 16s that I could spit off the top and they all kill. You know what I mean? That was the first goal.
That's pretty typical for a New Yorker. Like you said in your position, that it wasn't really about the like being a rapper as much as it's about having the respect of like your peers and the people in your age group. Like guys in New York City were known for that specifically, where it's just like, yo, check out this rhyme he got. Yo, this shit is fire. But it was just like that rhyme and it went on endlessly or whatever, you know? But it was like, it was never like, oh, this song he's about to do for you, you know? Like, it was just like, I got bars though. I got bars, you know?
So I'll kind of like get you to where we start the dub, right? So I'm at Brooklyn Tech. I have really like honed and mastered, I like to say, this art of like freestyling and being able to come off the top. I got like a good amount of like verses that I could just pull up on your site for kill you with 4 or 5 hot ones and be like, all right, respect, you're gonna remember me. And so I graduate and then I go to CUNY. I go to Hunter College. I want to say first semester, Hunter College, I'm not academic, Brody. I'm not there to like further my future. I'm there to meet my new set of peers and take everything that I've already done to a new level of freedom because I'm now a man and I can do whatever I want, Mom. So
he said, Mom.
I feel it so much. That was flawless.
Next time I see your mom, I'm gonna tell you said that, yo.
She knows.
I know she knows. I'm gonna remind her though.
I mean, I moved out when I was 19, bro, and I haven't been back. You know what I mean? And so like we're right in that pocket, right? Of like the man tension of growing and like being like who I want to be.
If you want to do what you want to do, you're gonna have to do that on your own. You're not gonna do it here.
You're not gonna do it here.
Mm-hmm.
I got like 3 notebooks, maybe 4, the big joints full of raps. I'm definitely trying to be conscious more. I'm trying to speak about, you know, kind of all of these things and injustices that I'm seeing. So I'm kind of sewing that into the bar work, but I'm also still trying to blow your head off and I'll cut you if I have to. So there's kind of like this duality to everything that I'm working on, right? It's kind of, I'm fun loving and peaceful and I'm conscious for the people, but I'll ice cube you too. So I'm at Hunter College and, you know, we're kind of going to class. We're spending a lot of time up at Central Park in the gazebo on the rocks. and we're like having 3-hour ciphers of different kinds. And so I meet the bro Stead Ruckus, then Mick Roberts, who's my brother to this day. I meet James Calhoun, who's my brother to this day. And Stead, he's got his homie who's coming home, who's been away for some time, and we're gonna go down to his apartment that he was renting on Rivington Street with his roommate Ben Block. And you know, it was like the frat apartment. You know the type. You walk in, there's an assortment of party goods and other things. And we spent a lot of time there. And one day this guy, Jason Voorhees, shows up, who's just got back, who's physically intimidating, who's very like cool, dope, but it's definitely brolic, and his bar work is like, who's that? Like, I don't know if I ever like been around that caliber of MC in my own sphere. And so we immediately like hit it off. You know what I mean? Honestly, like we're kindred spirits, you know, and like he's hitting me with a verse and I'm hitting him with a verse, and he's hitting me. And so we pretty much go through our whole book, you know, and like he's been away at camp for a while, sharpening his sword. You know, I've been out here in the street and in school and all that, sharpening my sword. And we have a good fashion, you know, master dojo sensei sword, you know, practice. And we do the ninja thing, and we say, yes, it is you, and it is you. And now we will go out there and we will find others like us, and we will form like Voltron. Shortly thereafter, my bro, Ego Trip, Paul Beauchamp, I meet him at Hunter College. He is a provider of some goods that we all like to partake in. And so I end up spending a lot of time at the dorms, the Hunter College dorms, and hanging out with him. And one night he's like, yo, like, let me play you something. And he plays us a Dummy album by Portishead. And needless to say, the party favors come out, the vibe raises, and we start doing the same thing. We start tearing through bars and being like, wow, it's a mutual admiration for one another's talent. And, you know, the story goes, we start forming this thing called Eye to Eye. And we decide, yes, I think that we should start trying to make a song. I think that verse that you have and that verse that you have, and he has a verse and a hook. And I think that this all goes together and it makes a song. And we recorded Would You Sell Your Soul for the Dough? And I think that might be the first record that we recorded. And I would be remiss in not mentioning my guy Saga Legend, who had equipment, you know, and we met him at the Rock, doing what we did at the Rock in Central Park.
That's key. Like he said it, he perked up when he said it, because in New York City, in all of that poverty, right? Yeah. You're not gonna have commonly many people who can afford to have studio equipment in their home back then. So like all like the way that like it is nowadays, like people just being able to record. That's why like everybody's story struggles of like recording on like headphones and things like that exist, because like it was difficult to get your hands on some equipment. So like to know somebody that had equipment themselves, you know, like that's like
that was a game changer, bro.
Game changer.
And not only that, but Hunter is on 68th Street, east side, and he lives on 59th Street, west side. So you telling me if we walk through the park and take a couple blocks south, we're gonna go to a place with equipment? Like what? So the gazebo moves to Saga Legend crib, the whole cipher, right? And we start recording in the bathroom. His mom hates us. We're taking our party favors there. She ain't feeling that. You know what I mean? And so like we do a couple of like demo tracks. We cut a couple of records, and then we're like, yo, I think we should just keep growing this into like a collective. And my guy at the time at Hunter College, his name was Cypher, has a boy from Boston who's super dope, and we gotta hear him. And so enter Slain into the picture, This is like 1997, 98. And me, him, Ego Trip, and Vice, or Jason Voorhees at the time, have like a legendary, monumental freestyle bars exchange out in front of Hunter College. And we rapped for like, you know, as long as they would let us before security told us we had to get it bumping. And so Slane becomes a part of the Eye to Eye collective. And Vice and I, you know, we quickly become really like tight homies. Like I said, I moved out of Mom Duke's crib. I go through a couple of different temporary situations, and then I move and I have my own crib out in Brooklyn. And I moved out to McDonald Avenue in Brooklyn, which is a predominantly like religious Jewish neighborhood. And somehow, you know, me and a girl at the time convinced this realtor to rent us an apartment, even though we have like no credit. We have like just enough cash to pay for like the deposit and the first month's rent. I'm working some gig, and so we get the crib, right? And so once I have the crib, you know, Vice becomes a staple on my couch. You know, he becomes like my fourth roommate. You know, Ego Trip is my roommate. Vice is there all the time. And then this new kind of level of creation starts to happen, right? Where we can now be disciplined to sit there and to do all our things, but also to write together and to have a more constructive approach towards taking this collective to a new level. And we start going to these underground shows, right? We start going, you know, to spots in the Village and the Lower East Side. James Bong is a promoter, you know, James from Hunter, who's the homie, and he's promoting parties and he puts us on a bill. And we have our first Eye to Eye show where we do a couple of these kind of makeshift hodgepodge records. And that really becomes like the foundation for us to do more in the underground and then to recruit more, honestly, because we're not really content that our collective is deep enough. And Vice, you know, always dreaming bigger and always pushing us is like, yo, we should have some shorties. You know what I mean? We should have like some, and then, you know, oh, so we meet some girls and they want to rap. So like, let's go to Brooklyn and let's go connect with them. And we go to Brooklyn and we start building with Corey, Cream, and Fifi. And we meet my sister Samaj, and they become part of the collective. And we start writing for them, right? And helping them to write and to cultivate their stuff. And this is how we meet Pumpkinhead and Bad Seed and Shabam Sadiq, because in Brooklyn at this time, like all of this is happening. People are working on music, they're collaborating. Like our homies are your homies. And like when we pull up at the crib, you pull up at the crib. And then this turns into like this familial thing, right? Where it's not just the shows we're doing, but it's like, well, what y'all doing on Saturday night? Like, let's pull up on the crib and let's work on the joint. And that's where we start to like really grow those roots that eventually lead us to meeting Zoo and Nunzio and working with them and forming the Dub, you know, more formally in the year 2000. And there's one place that's really like seminal in that transition. And it's this place, Bob's. You know, Bob's is a bar downtown in the Lower. And my man Paul works at Ralph Lauren, and he's got a crew of people that always go there on Thursday night. They're not carding you. The beers are cheap. If you get there at a certain time, you know what I mean? Nobody really notices you. So we start pulling up there at like 6:30, you know what I mean? And we meet the locals and we get friendly. And then those ciphers that we were doing in the apartment or at the college dorm turn into ciphers in the middle of the dance floor over the records that the DJ is playing. And the DJ is this guy named Joey Ty, Filipino bro, mad cool. And he's super like receptive to us, like being there and like rapping over his records. But he's also like, yo, this is like a party, not a rapper show. So he quickly is like, yo, I found another spot. I can put together like an open mic night and DJ it for you. And Baby Jupiter is born. And that first kind of classic night that everybody talks about being the first night at end of the week, which Vice thought of that name, you know, always being the creator that he is. You know, it's Sunday, it's end of the week, but it's also end of the week because we're strong. And there's always like double and triple entendres. and like a great level of creative visualization behind all of his concepts, right? And the rest is not history, but the rest is kind of where we are right now.
Fair. So the rest is like.
Wait, no, you're not gonna pull that shit on us.
No, but I mean, it's time for me to pause and have some water, bro.
The buck stops here, right, buddy? Right? You're not gonna cut us short right there and be like, oh. And well, that wraps it up in a nice little bow for us. No.
But I think that's almost the end of the part one of the Prolific One interview, right?
Okay.
And here, I got 20% now. I think that should hold me down for a little bit.
Okay.
So you know, I don't know if you probably heard the story. We get the night.
It's interesting to hear your side of the story, because I heard Nunzio and Big Zoo's side of the story, and their side of the story was a little more like, and those eye to eye guys were really nice. They were really nice. Like there was a degree of like I liked them, but like they were really nice. Like we were nicer, but they were nice. And your side of the story is like, we made this big collective and we had this whole collective going. And then I ran into them and then we had this night. And I'm like, they like go into all this detail about the night. They break it down like this. And you're like, I'm wrapping up. And I'm like, that is mad different.
That's what I'm saying. But you know what? I find the dichotomy, the duality of how all your personalities, right? Like if you look at Zoo and you look at Pro, like their interviews are like not similar at all, you know? No. And they're very different, like they're very different men, grew up with in different ways, and though there's similar things, right? But it's just like very different, you know? And I'm pretty sure that like if we were to have been lucky enough and blessed enough to have Vice around and interview him, it would have also been a different, you know, just story and upbringing, you know? Like,
I mean, but like
way of being.
Obviously, I'm giving you a truncated version, right?
Yeah, but still.
But I will say that while being mindful of other people and other performers and talents, there was a real like strict focus in creating this eye-to-eye thing that was like not just me and Vice and Trip, right? It was about like this almost this spectacle of like, yo, there's a black dude, there's a black Spanish dude, there's a just Spanish dude, there's an Asian black girl, there's a white girl, and then there's a white rapper from Boston, and they're in the same crew, and every one of them got bars. Like, it was almost like it was bigger than any of us, right? And our goal was to do something that was not manufactured, but that was organic, but also representative of who we were as people and where we came from and what we wanted to bring to the industry. Because eye to eye, you know, it stands for Introduction to Insanity. And then insanity is like initiating new styles amongst a negligent industry's troubled youth, right? So there's this real intentional focus on trying to like shift what we were seeing in mainstream music at the time, and to make it not only more inclusive, but to make it based on skills and how dope you were, but also to like look different, be different, and represent something different. You know what I mean? And it was so unique and so singular what we were doing that it was like, yeah, we saw everybody and we acknowledged their talent, and there's always competition. We were all familiar with that. Like I told you earlier, like that was a whole factor in like me trying to like brush up and tighten my shit. But our goal was and always has been bigger and about more than like competitive rapping.
Still, it's just fascinating to hear the way the stories get told. But can you tell us more?
By the way, like I agree. Like I find this very, like I enjoy the fact that it's because it speaks to the fact that that's why the synergy was always so constantly good with all y'all. Even right. Nunzio being the guy that was like, right, like the way that I saw it, essentially, right, is like the two duos within the groups, right? So like Vice Versus and Propane joined with like Zoo and Nunzio, and that's really like those four are what forms the pyramid of the end of the week family, right? And so even Nunzio being a performer, but being like, I'm gonna get off the stage and I'm gonna take care of the sound, is just it's that it's showing synergy. It's showing where like everybody's gonna fall into, you're gonna willingly fall into these parts and these roles because you all want to fill them. You want this thing to succeed, you know? And so like the fact that everybody's story is different shows that exactly that, you know, the where the success lies. It's in that. It's in the differentness of each one of you. And that's what you were talking about, eye to eye having. The different,
and that happens like I think that happened organically, and like, you know, again, it's like this universe will align things the way they're supposed to be aligned, whether or not you want them to. So what happened is like Trip, you know, he ended up having a child even before any of us, right? So his level of responsibility to a Sunday night show was like way low on his priority list in life, right? Whereas the rest of us weren't even thinking about, you know, having babies and things like that. Except me, I did have my child, you know, when the dub started. But when we got on stage that first night, it was very clear where the synergies and connections lie, right? There are personalities that were like performer, host, strong, like go kill 'em personalities that gelled. And then there were other people that were instrumental in making sure that the machine was intact and running at a high level so that could all gel and fuse together, right? And I think that once we started rapping and like hosting and like bouncing stuff off each other, and other people saw it, I feel like even before we were really like, yeah, it's us three, you know? It was kind of like, yeah, these guys, like what they're doing right there is something that's unique and should be honed and harnessed and like nurtured. And I, you know, God bless the fam for like helping us to be able to be in that position to help the movement go where it went, right? But I feel like that was all organic for me. You know what I mean? Like we just banged together crazy. You know what I mean? And Vice had the ad libs crazy. Like he knew the timing. Zoo was mega like leader, like stoic. Like, yo, I'm your father. I'm gonna put you in your place, and I'm gonna show you the best freestyle you ever heard. And I'm like the life of the party, right? I'm gonna make sure that this thing is popping the whole time. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna be the disruptor, right? Because we can't always be straight laced and buttoned up. There has to be some level of cool and like laid back, like yo, little brother energy. And so like that's where I'm fitting into the puzzle, you know. And those three things coming together, like it's a trinity. You know what I'm saying? And there can't be more and there can't be less. And this is one of the things that I tell Zoo even now in private is like, we can never be the three again, you know, because there's something perfect that, and if you know about the 3 and the 6 and the 9, and you know your knowledge, like there's something about that 3 that is like, it's a magic number. And so like, I'm glad that y'all and the people out there have got to like witness and be a part of that era, because it can never be replicated again without my brother. You know what I'm saying? Because he's part of that 3. And like me and Zoo are gonna kill, and we're gonna do what we're gonna do, but there will never be a 3 kings like that again.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment, Stills. I have one question before you leave that has to be asked. Why Propane and Prolific one, and what happened with the name change? What's the right name?
My right name is Omar.
No,
but
fair enough.
So Prolific one, so that's my original like first name. Like that's my rapper name. Like since I was like in high school.
fact, right? So like if you find people who know me from like 95, like, oh, prolific one. And then the one being the WONE because I won and I'm a winner. And also I'm the one. So I felt like I had to compound those two and smash them together. And also as a shorty, there was a crew that I remember always seeing up, and it was one team, WON. And I always thought that was so clever, like, because every graffiti artist does the number one a lot of times after their shit to make sure that you know that they're the first of their name. So prolific one because I'm the first of that name, and anybody who wants to be prolific, you could be that, but I'm still the one. So there's that.
They're gonna be prolific 2 and 3.
Whatever they want, but you know, I'm always gonna be the first of my name. But as I was doing the dub, like a few years into doing the dub, I felt like I wanted to have a sharper kind of name that was a little bit harder, for you know, lack of better words. I felt like I was fire and I was burning shit, and I needed something to articulate that. And so I shifted and I changed my name to Propane, because I just liked it. I just liked the way the shit rung off. Fact. And now that I've come back to music, you know, since Vice's transition, I felt like it was important for me to get back to my square and to my original cipher, and I have to like be true to how I named myself originally and go back to that, you know what I mean, core element. And I felt like it was befitting just in terms of like the amount of productivity of creation and art that I'm creating. And I didn't want to be in pain no more. You know what I'm saying? So I had to drop all that. You know what I mean?
Yo, your brother is in the background looking like the groundskeeper and shit.
Hey.
It's his crib. He's just doing his usual Saturday.
Hey, you at Prolific One. This is a live version of Miami Cribs. We in Kendall right now.
It's amazing too, because it's just so like, I don't know that I've ever watched anybody actually clean a pool. This is just not a regular thing in my life.
Absolutely,
you know what I'm saying? Welcome
awesome.
to my world. This is part one. Wait till we get
Littyyy,
up a little
Littyyy
more.
Bro
You know what I'm saying? I just
Littyyy
need to
Pro.
let you know it's real. It's real. I'll be modest, humble status and all that, but hey, extra 100.
That's real dope. And it's really cool to see that, right? Like, it's like to know that this is where the story ends, right? Is it
ends? We just started, Daddy. Come on, man.
It's not the right word. It's just, man. Sometimes
ends at this episode.
But yo, first of all, that mixtape thing you do with vinyl is ridiculously awesome. I don't know if it's a mixtape, but I have to tell you, as a person that was like looking into you, going to prolific1.com and then finding this mixtape thing that appears to just, because I've heard some of these tracks before, it just seems to be this like cut of like your whole career, and then it's like Artist of the Ages, right? And it's just, I don't know if it's you or Vinyl talking. I couldn't figure out half, or if it's both of you.
It's me.
So it's fair. It's you. And it almost felt like this like behind the scenes commentary, like the bonus DVD track that would come out. Like, and I was into it heavy. I was like, this was very helpful. It was a helpful tool to like look into your life more. And it made me go, more artists should do things like this. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, you know, and like I said, I've been off for years now. You know what I mean? I had to shift and pivot to the family and to making sure that like my business was right, that I was able to get some assets popping and to like do things that are gonna feed the seeds, right? You know, and as the fam knows, like I was the first cat in our crew, really, aside from my man Ego Trip, to like venture down that path into parenthood. And like after you do something for 14 years and dedicate that much time and effort to it, other things start to fall by the wayside, you know, and it's very hard to keep a balance to make sure that everything is popping like it should be. So like I had to hyper focus on other places, and you got to put down bags in life sometimes to be able to move, right? And not that the dub was a bag, but like it's just a thing that like fam got it. We got a lot of killers out here that's gonna hold it down. You know what I mean? And I had to go hold me down. And it's interesting, like in 2019, I was with Vice and we were down here. We was in Miami. We spent a couple of days together in Wynwood. And it was the first time that he and I have really got to like really check in on some like, yo, what's really good with you, and like have off-screen moments, for lack of a better terminology. And you know, he was like, "What's up with the music? Like, why are you not doing that? Like, I got the studio. I'm in the idea factory. I'm working with Omar Ox. You know what I'm saying? We working." And like, I lost the like, not the fire, but I just didn't feel like hungry for it no more. And I had like started to fulfill that bucket with other creative endeavors and other things that I've been working on and initiatives. And so when he transitioned, that resonated with me and it really stuck with me. And then I found myself personally going through a lot of loss in other areas of my life. And I found myself like reeling, like falling and then falling and like looking for who I was again and looking for things that could make me whole again, and places where I will be able to like refine and rediscover myself. And the one thing that had always been there consistently and that I could control, and that was my own, was the music. You know what I mean? And maybe it would be the only thing. It's a team and it's a family that helps me to make the thing real and to like execute on it. But the writing and the like ideation and creating melody and like that shit emanates from me, Brody. So like I had to like say to myself, like, yo, that's who you are. Like you are always going to be that. And if you're not exercising and flexing that muscle, you're not truly yourself and you're not really being yourself. You're almost like hiding from yourself and filling it with like this lie about, oh, I gotta work hard and do all this other shit to make money for other people and to like pay our mortgage. But when in fact, like the only thing we really owe ourselves in this life is to like to be our true, unique, one of a kind selves and to fulfill and to pursue that to our greatest ability. So I had to like pick up the pen and pick up the music again. And I forget the question, but
honestly, I think you answered it and then you just went way further with it, and it's really great. Yo, I like what you're saying at the end here too, because it ends on such a cool note. Like real life shit kicks in. You had to prioritize that to ensure that the people around you are in a good place. That's actually like super important. Like a lot of people who don't do that end up in bad places in their 40s and 50s is what I'm learning as I get older and see people.
No, I'm a living testament to that, right? Is because like you start to go out and you do all of these things that you think you need to have to do.
Did he freeze? Okay, that's what happened there. Right?
We good?
Okay, you're back with us. Perfect. You definitely froze for a second there.
So all that to say, like, I felt like last time I saw the bro, he was telling me, I know who you really are, and I know even more than you might know what you truly need, and you need to be doing this even just for yourself as a human. And I found a way to escape and avoid that. And his transition was like almost a final like wake up reminder, like, no, like you gotta be who you are, bro. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of other gates and chambers that I went through to get to that place. But like, if I do anything, I got to make sure that that eye to eye legacy and that vice versa legacy and that music, you know, that we started, that journey that we started together keeps going, and that it goes all the way, and that it has resonance, and that we truly do initiate new styles amongst the negligent industry's trouble youth, because ain't shit changed. And so I have a debt to Brody, and I have a debt to myself to fill. And so I went in and I did, 52 joints, and I got 13 cooking, ready almost to go. I've been putting out the Artist of the Ages mixtape because I felt like I'm a new artist again. So I have to give you context of who this guy is. I have to show you like everything from the first record that I recorded solo all the way through records that I'm not going to release until 2022, so that you could see glimmers and specks and you could start to see the composite of who Prolific One is, so that's kind of like how the Artist of the Ages thing came together. Was like, I'm a new artist, bro. I have to treat it like that. So I have to give you some kind of product. I got to give you some kind of sampler so that you know where I'm at and who I am and where I'm going.
That it's really good. I also like the Three Hearts song. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yo,
And
a lot of pain, Brody. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why I said, like, beautiful, sexy sadness and all that, right? Is because all my music is personal. Everything is about the human condition. And I know that if my heart is broken and I'm dealing with like loss of family, loved ones, you know, children, etc., other people are having these similar situations and they not might be able to articulate it in the same way that I can. But if I'm honest about who I am and what I'm going through, and I'm giving that up, and that's my offering, that's really ultimately as an artist all I have to give. It's not vapid records about how dope I am or how I'm gonna just kill some shit or like how the party is great. It's about the human condition and experience and my human condition and experience. And I find that any music that is timeless and classic, that's where it derives from, the heart and the soul.
I appreciate that. I mean, I look for that more in music than a lot of the other stuff. I mean, sometimes a good party record's a good party record, but like
Yeah.
there's something to like feeling pain through music that I've always loved and been attracted to across all genres. So hearing that done well with that authenticity and that like just sincerity to the delivery and everything, it's nice. And then you can compare it to like how like intense your younger work is, because I have
Right.
heard that Three Kings project. I have heard a few things that you've done from that time just in looking into Big Zoo and whatnot. So it's really like it's just cool to see that you're still with it. I saw your performance on the Sunday night Zoom call where you had like 3 cameras set up and it was lit.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah,
tight.
bro.
It was like well done. And the way that you're even just utilizing the Zoom to create that kind of a set and have the switcher person make it all like I'm like, look at you go, man. You're adapting proper and you're doing it like you know, already setting a standard to follow in this current fucking era. It's blessed to see
Yeah.
that.
I appreciate that, bro. You know, and like ultimately, um, everybody in our family has different things to offer. You know what I'm saying? And what I have to offer is myself, you know what I mean? My experience, like I said, and we all have to lead in our own ways. And for me to lead the dub and the fam right now, for me, it feels like I gotta be a dope fucking artist. You know what I mean? I gotta put out music that resonates. I gotta put it out in a professional way. I have to collaborate with other artists and bring attention to myself, but bring attention to the fam through those channels, right? Because like the way I think about it sometimes is like people know Pac and then they know Death Row maybe, or people know Cube and then they know NWA. Like there has to be some like breakout person that connects you to the movement, right? So if I could go and I could collect people and connect them and bring them back to the movement, then we all gonna eat and we all gonna like grow from that. And if I could put together a polished professional product, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, artists are product and what they put out, then that raises the quality standard for what we do as a collective. And it also shows fam like how we should be moving out here. And so like my level of involvement may, you know, waver, change, and like I might not be doing program management and things that I might have done at one time. But by being the best prolific one that I could be, I'm always dubbed and people, you know what I mean, find a path to the dub through me.
Yo, I really appreciate that.
Facts.
And I even like the way that the sun went down and made it all a perfect setting to
Word.
close up on. Like it has almost a poetry to it. And for that, like I really thank you for coming through. I really appreciate you
And
taking the
you
time.
know
Like you're
what?
like
I want to thank you too, real quick, Pro. You know what I mean? Like, yo, for many, many years, you know, like how the relationship has always been with us. Like I've always had nothing but great love and respect and admiration for you. I mean, you know, the whole family, period. You know, like it's not like, you know, I'm not like excluding, you know, but I have a particular relationship with each one of you, right? Like to the point where like that's where the joke came from of like, you know, Zoo being the responsible mom, right?
Right.
Because I look at you guys as my parents, you know, like I look at you as like the irresponsible dad.
So I'm saying there's somebody got to be the disruptor, right?
Yeah, you know, and Zoo as like the responsible mom, you know, and Vice was like the
cool uncle.
the cool uncle that would be with you in the shits, like with you in the shits. And when you guys come out and maybe say something, he'll just like look at you and be like, yeah, yo, for real. Like, and you're just like, wait, but you were just here with me. You
right. You were there too.
But you were there too. But like, you know, that like I appreciate you all for each one of your relationships. You know what I mean? Like you're all
great. You want me to pay for it?
And I just wanted to thank you, bro. You know, I just wanted to thank you and tell you from the bottom of my heart, I have much love for you. You know what I mean? And I was looking forward to like getting to know you better. You know what I mean? Like the same way I'm looking for, like, yo, like there's no secret to this shit, right? Like it's like, yo, like dead ass, like I said at the beginning, right? Like, Holden's nice with it. And I'm also like, yo, these are the people that I want. And I'm playing favorites. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is, you know? Like
I love y'all, man. I appreciate the program. You know, I've watched numerous episodes of it, and I think it's great for us to like be able to have this kind of platform, to have these kind of conversations, not only to educate people about like New York City hip hop and all these different regions and all of that, but just for everybody to say their piece and to like give folks insight into like what's happening behind the artistry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
And that this is all thanks to you guys, though. You know what I mean? Like once again, like bless up to EO Dub and bless up to the creators, the founders, the you know,
like
the gods
you created.
You know?
It's like what you created to this day has impacted my life. If you think about it, like in what universe am I sitting here doing this if it wasn't for the dub?
And like I said, bro, when we first started this thing, you know, that's love, and that's a higher power and a different energy that I don't know if we know how to articulate yet. So love to both of y'all. You know what I'm saying? I continue to hope that you guys rock this show every week, have dope artists, have people on, and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? Because it's necessary, and it's not just in vain. It's a community service y'all doing. So, you know, keep giving back.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, honestly. And I appreciate everyone watching.
Thank you coming in and giving information.
Follow me at Prolific1.
Yeah,
go to my website,
absolutely.
Prolific1.com, or we'll punch your mother in the face.
Definitely go there and check out the stuff. You got to hear the mixtape with Vinyl. Whatever, I'm moving past that. I don't know what I'm supposed to say at this point. You just take what it comes, right? But it's like
that's a hyper threat. That's a hyper threat.
No, but thank you for real. But also everybody watching.
Yo, shouts to Bonnie. She just said shank you.
Yeah. Bonnie's serious. The more Bonnie talks to like New York people, she gets more. She's embracing her inner violence.
That was dope. Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all for like watching that, who are watching it live on the different platforms. Make sure you follow End of the Week. So youtube.com/EOWTV. Make sure to throw a subscribe there. Make sure to go and everybody watching this in the future too. Thank you, the follows and likes and all that good stuff. Because it's really cool for y'all to be here whenever you give us your time like that. We appreciate you in total and all that good stuff. So on that note, live long and prosper, everybody.
Vice versa forever.
Vice versa forever.
And I'm gonna start the raid on my side. So we can end that.
Danny's right here. She played favorites too.